Good evening and welcome to a Thursday night's edition of the Tea Room. Hope everybody is well. Let me introduce you first to our wonderful panel. We have Palm on my left shoulder. Hello, Palm.
Hello, Tickers. Hello, everybody.
Below me, we have Watch Brian. Hello, Brian.
Right where I belong again, right below you, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another stream. and next to Brian, we have Andy Batch Guitars. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well.
Okay, tonight we have a treat for you guys. We have a special guest. We have on our Cuppa With series. We have the one and only Richard Benc from Studio Underd0g Watches. I have one of the watches here, which I've been loaning for about 2 months. He'll get it back very shortly. So let's get Richard into the studio and let's have a chat with him. Hello, Richard, and welcome to the Ticker Show. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite, and glad to see you're enjoying that watch.
Yeah, it's an incredible little thing. I do love the colours. I always, when I first saw them, this was the funkiest colour that I like. I think it's really good. So you are the one-man band, aren't you? It literally is you, isn't it?
It's me. Yeah, I'm the director down to the T-boy. And everything in between.
Do you know what? I don't know how you do it because I've got this little channel here and I can't do this little channel on my own. Never mind produce a blinking set of watches and development and everything else like that. I just don't know how you do it, man. Seriously.
I think
I've got people who do a lot more than me.
I think sort of, I guess the way I deal with it is not really knowing what I'm doing as I'm going along. So I probably, I think when I started, I didn't realize quite how daunting the challenge would be. But yeah, that sort of lack of understanding probably played into my hands to some extent. Or else I probably would never have started a watch brand, realizing how difficult and stressful it is in reality. But hey, easy to be wise in hindsight.
I think I have the answer for you, Tickers. Richard's younger, faster, smarter, and better looking than you are.
Fair enough, then. That's the answer. That's why he copes and I don't.
Yeah.
So we'll start with a few proper questions if I can. I'd like to say you've got all these lovely, colourful dials that are inspired by, I don't know, food and sneakers, and kind of what the stories behind each one, and how many of each piece do you normally bring into the equation on each time you go up? I know there's a new lot coming up next week. So what goes on there?
So I've sort of announced that a new lot will be available next week. So in terms of the colors, I wish there was, I wish I could kind of break down, there being a eureka moment as to when, suddenly I was impacted with, taking an influence from a watermelon or whatever. But I think the reality is I'm a designer, studied product design, loved it, and stumbled my way into the watch industry. Bit of an accident, really. And just before I'd started my brand, I was working for a German brand called Braun, and they're super minimalistic, Bauhaus design. Essentially, it was, a black dial or a white dial. Possibly, if you're feeling a little bit ambitious, you go for a grey dial. And yeah, not much in between. So I think playing with color was my rebellion. During lockdown, I kind of started to work on some of my own projects. And I think that was really it. I kind of wanted to inject as much fun and color as I could. Because there was not much else to do in lockdown. It was a pretty boring time. And B, my kind of history of designing watches had just been so kind of monochromatic that I wanted to play with color.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
So maybe leading on, right, from that question would be, it's quite a big task, right, to take on like this industry, especially in a world of micro brands. It's such a competitive market. So I guess just a little bit more around that. What gave you that final push to really go at it? And just maybe one for the viewers, so like a second part to the question. What would you say separates your brand from like a herd of other micro brands? Like I think I know, but just for our viewers as well.
So To be honest, the two-part question, the answer is the same. The biggest thing that kind of separates me, and I think the biggest reason for the kind of my brand being a success amongst, so many micros popping up, all the time, is when I started, I had no intention of bringing my product to market, which meant that every decision that I made along the way, there was no part of it that had a commercial drive. So when I started, I basically, start of lockdown, was a bit bored of the kind of current workloads. I wanted to sort of refine my skill set, sharpen my teeth, as it were. So I set myself a brief to create a watch, or to design a watch, and sort of around it, the branding and what its USP was, this, that, and the other. And as far as I was concerned, the end of project was when I'd created those illustrations, created those 3D renderings, and I posted them on a Facebook group. There's a group called Microbrand Watches. Maybe you guys are members. I posted on there, and as far as I was concerned, that was end of project. I kind of posted, sort of brushed my hands of it, and thought, that was a productive period of time. Just to pass the time, really. And it got some really good kind of traction on that Facebook group. It, got loads of likes, got some really good engagement. And based off those, the comments that people were leaving, they kind of encouraged me to get some samples made. So then it was kind of the next chapter. It was the next part of this project. Again, even at this time, I was never even thinking of selling. I was just thinking, you know what? Yeah, maybe I could go ahead and make some samples. I've been in the industry. I've been in the industry for 5-6 years at that point. So I had contacts. I knew, who to reach out to. I'd been to a number of factories in Switzerland, in the Far East. So it wasn't a huge daunting task even to make samples. And I did that next step. And slowly from then, it kind of, it turned into a brand super organically. But that's the thing. The reason for the success, I think a huge kind of credit is to the fact that it wasn't meant to be a commercial product.
Sure.
Wow.
And you put a different pressure on yourself, right? From that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about, now it's obviously quite a unique approach that more often than not can't be replicated, because most brands or people, when they create a brand, they'll actively be looking for gaps in the market. They'll be looking for, either gaps in the market, or the opposite. They'll be looking at what else is already successful and been trying to sort of replicate that and imitate that. So admittedly, there's a lot of micro brands that are sort of homage brands, where they'll take their design influence directly from bigger players, because as far as they're concerned, they can see the kind of the value in that. Whereas mine was such a different approach, non-commercial, that it meant, I didn't consider that. And had I been commercial, there is no way on earth I'd have ended up with a watermelon themed mechanical hand wind, chronograph. No chance.
Brilliant.
Wow, that is superb. I mean,
it's incredible.
Which is a great one. I posted the link before Palmer's asked something. I posted the link into the chat of the. So while you're listening to Richard and his answers, I'll have a look at these wonderful watches and that wonderful.
I'll full screen you, John.
Yeah, so there you go. You can have a look at that. There's all the models are on there, and they're all back in, I think, next week. Get your hands on them, because they'll go in very, very quickly. They go out within 10, 15 minutes or something stupid. When they go up, they're out again. So seriously, want one of these or any of the other ones, get ready to pull the trigger next week. Thanks, Palm. Go ahead. Go ahead. Next.
Yeah, so what I find quite incredible about your brand is your watches have featured on Hodinkee, just to name a few influencers. Hodinkee, Bark and Jack, and Watchfinder as well, and obviously us now, which is obviously the biggest one. But how does a startup brand like yours get such high-profile exposure and marketing sort of, prowess, especially being a team of one?
Good question. So as I said at the start, I've no idea what I'm doing. I'm no, I wish I could kind of credit myself and say, oh, it's the marketing genius that I am, that this, that, and the other.
The book's coming out
really
next week, yeah?
You really do put yourself down, Richard. Crikey, seriously, you're amazingly well.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I was, I've been absolutely astonished by the kind of the reception and the publicity and, the exposure that the brand has got. And when I started, there's a big change now. So when I initially started, and when you're starting a micro brand, especially when you've not got product out in the market, for any editorial to cover a brand or to cover a micro brand is a bit of a risk, because so many micro brands, either don't make it, or if they do make it, they make sort of products that may not meet expectations. And in worst case scenarios, especially, on Kickstarter and things, some brands may not even be able to, to manufacture a watch at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong. I think Kickstarter's a lot of the time brilliant. That's where my brand started. Yeah. But it has that sort of reputation, and it means editorials can understand that there is a risk associated with them publishing brands that are in the works, as it were. So at the start, it was a little bit difficult. I was doing a lot of outreach, trying to see, trying to prove myself. My first kind of big success was Jody from another YouTube channel, just one more watch.
Yeah,
that was it. He was the first person really, that I kind of sort of latched onto and wanted to make sure that I could get my watch on his channel, because it's great exposure. It was sort of, I thought the concept was right up his street, where it's quite playful, quite fun. He seems to like that sort of thing. So the first thing I did was, rather than send him an email saying, hey, I'm a new up and coming micro brand, I didn't bother doing that, just because I knew that he must get so many emails like that. So I kind of wanted to, I was trying to think of how I could stand out and how I could sort of make an impact. So I used his own format, essentially. So I made a YouTube video, just a private one, and sent him the link so only he could see it. But essentially, I sort of made a YouTube video in his style. And there's a lot of sort of, in jokes and things, that he says. And I'm a fan, I'm an enthusiast. So I kind of, mirrored that and basically made it a bit of a joke. And he obviously saw that, and it resonated with him. He thought it was great, and I sent him some watches, and that was my first kind of bit of exposure. So that was the first thing. That was where I was really having to kind of think outside of the box and look at different avenues as to to how to be seen. And then as the brand kind of matured and it got more visibility, mostly organically, my brand, the growth of it has been via enthusiasts, buying the watch, or, meeting up at a red bar and taking photos and then sharing it on their socials. So it's been very organic, but it's got great visibility from that. Mm-hmm. So the most recent one was Watchfinder. And I have, over probably the last 8 months, I have typed up a draft email to Andrew at Watchfinder with the same old spiel, that I'm this microbrand, this, that, and the other. And I just thought, again, he must get so many emails every day from microbrands. So I said, you know what? Realistically, the only way that he's going to be interested in seeing my product is if he has heard of me before, if he's stumbled across the brand before. So instead of doing a big long sort of introduction, and a long email with various press releases and that, I sent pretty much a one-line email saying, hey, Andrew, let me know if you want samples. That was pretty much it. And he got back to me straight away saying, awesome, love what you're doing. Please send some samples across. So that's how it's kind of changed in the year or so since I started versus now. Now, people are slightly more aware of the brand.
Wow.
Very cool.
Going back to that Watchfinder video, I think the Justice that did the detail on your dial, the kind of what's the kind of the gravelly kind of the texture of the dial. That was the first one I actually saw how good it was up close, because obviously I've not seen one up close, but I will soon, hopefully. But that really did do justice. So again, to our audience and to yourself, well done on that. And you just don't notice these things in pictures, and someone does a really good job on it. But that was
that's what Watchfinder are just so good at. The videography is amazing. Their storytelling is like nothing else. And the funny thing is, when I said to Andrew, I told him this story. I told him that over the past sort of 8 months, I had drafted emails multiple times and then just hit delete. I said, do you know what? It's not even worth sending, because he must just get so many, and he said, funnily enough, he doesn't. From microbrands, he doesn't. And I think a big part of it is a lot of microbrands may not have the confidence in their quality. If, bear in mind, a lot of videos he does on Rolexes or whatever, and if there's a sort of slight smudge of paint on, the GMT hand or whatever, all the comments are picking this up, this detail.
Yeah.
So I think it's put off a lot of microbrands or smaller brands from reaching out, because essentially they're a little bit scared that he might unearth something, or whereas I'm quite confident in my quality, especially for my price point, that I didn't even think twice about it.
Okay.
Wow.
Thanks. And rightfully so too.
Excellent. Right, I think Brian's got a question for you.
Yeah,
right?
so now you got to answer a question from across the pond here in the colonies. And I appreciate this, because your website has a sense of humor. The watches are playful, as you say. They might be a little cheeky. That all comes from you, but I'm wondering where does that come from in your background? Is it in your personality, or was it just you saying, I'm going to quote your own website to you, so you better know it. An industry that typically takes itself very seriously. Is this just you showing them pick a finger?
It's not quite as direct as that, but it's that sort of, towing the line. I think a lot of it is British humor. It's that kind of, saying it without saying it. I think it is very much my character as well. Always, even through design and studying at uni, I'd always try and add humor into my design projects, especially my presentations and things. The number of times the tutors would roll their eyes when I was up doing a presentation, showing off a product I'd designed. I'd always try and make it quite sort of quite silly and fun, but always backing it up with good work. It wasn't like I was there being the class clown. It was good quality work, and then also being able to kind of poke fun at myself and poke fun as to what I was doing. So that's a part of my personality. I think it is also, it's British humor is a bit like that, and I guess I add that to my thought process, or it's not even a thought process. It's just sort of, that's how it comes naturally to me, because it's just part of my personality.
Well, a few of us Americans, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's been incredible. Obviously, the watch market in the States is huge. The Studio Underdog seems to be quite popular in the States.
Yeah, one of the guys in my local watch club has the watermelon, I believe.
Yeah, well, this is what's been amazing is local watch clubs seem to be a really good way to that people have been able to kind of get hands on with my watches. That's a big challenge, being a micro brand or a small brand, direct consumer. I don't really have, you can't go into a shop and check out the product. So that's what, funnily enough, these these watch meetups when people can have the product there and people can check it out and go, oh wow, this packs a punch. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. So we've got a question from one of the people in the panel.
I'll bring it back
basically
up.
asking, when is a microbrand not a microbrand anymore? When does it suddenly become not a microbrand?
I think that it's
Big
an
time.
impossible question, isn't it? Nobody knows. There's no right or wrong answer. People also kind of, even struggle to define what a microbrand is. So I've no idea. What do you think? What does the panel think?
We've just had a chat with somebody who wrote
inside info on that. Yeah,
we do.
A guy called Giuseppe, who an Italian guy,
Morasco,
who wrote, he wrote something on. I don't know if he contacted you. The book is on order with us. We haven't got it yet, but I don't know if you actually feature in that book or not. But he's done a book on microbrands.
40 microbrands.
40 microbrands. So I don't know whether and I actually asked.
Come on, have it.
Does it have
Andy Warhol, the Andy Warhol type cover.
The Andy Warhol, it's got an Andy
Yeah.
Warhol type cover.
Yeah, I'm sure I have it. Where is it?
You probably do. I imagine you would have it.
Yeah.
Mine arrives tomorrow, if that helps. Don't think it does really help much.
We've got this guy on the channel soon, guys. The guy we've interviewed.
Yeah.
We've got him on soon. He's a legend. That's the book.
That's the book.
That's
our man.
Yeah.
Are you in there then, Richard? Are you guys in there?
I am. Yeah.
You guys, you in there? I thought
Fantastic.
So we asked him the question. We asked him when does a microbrand not become a microbrand anymore, and I think he said it was based on maybe the number of watches produced.
No. It was the layered structure.
Also the structure.
Yeah. If it's flatter the structure, the more microbrandy, and the more layered it becomes a bit bigger.
The more corporate it becomes, right?
Yeah.
Structure in terms
I think he said
kind of like distribution structure. Is
marketing teams and business teams and design
different
teams rather than
and
just one panel doing the whole thing.
And I think he said if it start producing over 1,000 watches or something a year, he was saying maybe it's not quite a micro brand anymore.
Yeah,
but it's an
So
interesting.
that's the thing. It's this fine line because I very much put Studio Underdog in the microbrand category. Some people don't like that word. So the interesting thing about the term microbrand is the barrier to entry or to be defined as a microbrand is very low. You can essentially create some renders, some illustrations, create a sort of a brand, and from that alone, without even producing any watches, you can label or say that you're a microbrand. And then on the flip side, I'm a one-man band. I'm still sort of doing everything by myself, but I'm getting to the point where I'll be producing more than 1,000 watches a year.
Wow.
I still think I'd very much fall within sort of microbrand, the category of microbrand.
Yeah.
But then again, a lot of people also would try and get away from that label because so many microbrands, as I said, might not make it, and they kind of put, sometimes people treat it as a bit of a dirty word.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
We have more questions. We have more questions from the audience, but what we'll do is I'll star them and we'll ask them at the end. We'll just get through our questions.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we haven't forgotten you, Colin.
Yeah.
We just got we've got some other questions here.
I've starred your comment, so don't worry, we'll ask you at the end.
Yeah.
And the Q&A from the comments.
Are you planning to make any different lines in the future, like a dress watch or a diver piece, or something with a different complication in than the one you've got currently, the SG 1901, Richard?
Yeah, I'm working on a number of projects. At the moment, the sort of the biggest one that's taking up a lot of my time is a field watch that's in development. I think so
nice.
So that's going to be, I guess, the second album. People have seen the Chrono collection and have really enjoyed it. So to produce something else that kind of meets the high expectations is a challenge, but one that so far where I'm at is I'm quite pleased with the current development. I was originally planning on launching it later this year, but I think I'm going to hold off a little bit just because I sort of want to focus on producing more of the current Chrono collection and sort of getting closer to meeting that demand before, you know, producing something new, because people, you know, up until now, I'm still not producing enough to meet the kind of the high level of demand. So, yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
So I've got more, maybe a bit of a fun question. So if you had unlimited budget, so don't worry about money, what would be your ultimate movement and complication to put into a watch design?
That's a great question. So a big part of the kind of the thought process, when I gave myself this brief, this design project, was I really liked the juxtaposition between an incredibly old mechanical movement. So the seagull that I chose in the end was, you know, was originally designed in the 1940s. So I liked that, and then having this really playful dial as the polar opposite. I think my thought process for the question would be quite similar, where I'd like basically a really sort of traditional, iconic type of movement, and then have a really modern, playful dial. So something maybe, you know, maybe even like a perpetual calendar or something really traditional. Nice. Really traditional that usually you don't see that many sort of modern takes on, and then just you know, inject a lot of color and playfulness into that. Yep. It would look weird, and I think that would look quite cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Absolutely.
Excellent.
That would be fun. So my question is not so fun, actually. Sorry, it's going to be, and this is all in fun, a positive way. I would like you to answer this as well. Not in a competitive kind of way. So, who do you see as your biggest competitor in the current market, and who would you like to, as a part one, like to catch up with or overtake in, say, a year? So, I mean that in a way, who, in a positive way, whoever you would mention, you hold them in high regard, and you would like to catch them or overtake them within 1 year? Is there a brand out there which Studio Underdog is trying to position itself to be like in 12 months' time?
So I guess rather than looking at it as a sort of a catch up and overtake, it's more about like inspiration. And so going back again to when I started, the brands that I was kind of aspiring, you know, to be or could see their sort of success and that really motivated me to continue pursuing this as an idea was Brew Watches. Jonathan from Brew Watches. Yeah. So an American brand, one-man band, you know, doing it all, having these quite, you know, playful, or at least a niche within a niche. His niche was the enthusiast market, and even more of a niche of that is, you know, those enthusiastic about coffee. And I could see that, and I could see that even though he was playing in that niche within a niche, there was still, you know, enough for him to be able to run a successful brand. So I kind of looked to that and aspired, do you know what, if he can do that on his own and can come up with these, you know, quite unique concepts that may not be for everyone, well, then maybe I can emulate that in my own way. So from the start, that was an aspiration. And then in terms of competition, something that I found quite amazing, especially in horology in the UK, in terms of British brands, so far I've not met anyone that treats it as competition. So I will, you know, have conversations with brands, British brands, Christopher Ward's, Fears Watches, and we will have an open dialogue. We will, you know, we'll kind of talk to each other, and it's rather than it being a competition where typically you'd think if I reached out to someone like that or message Paul from Fairer, you know, he might go, hold on, what, you know, why would I answer? Why would I help? Or why, whatever. It's not. It seems that everyone has the understanding that if everyone sort of works together, if everyone is successful, it elevates the whole industry, and there's so much room to grow, especially within British horology, that everyone can win. Everyone's a winner, so it's not thought of as competition. That's what I found it, which is incredibly unique. I'd never have expected that.
The second part was, who is your watchmaking inspiration? So that kind of went hand in hand. So thank you. So Brew, I mean, I saw about the thing about Brew and the coffee shop and the little perforations on the dial representative of the draining sort of bits on a coffee machine where you just sit in there. Very, very interesting concept, and Brew being a coffee and stuff as well. But okay, thank you very much for that, Richard.
And a rising tide raises all ships.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, and it's amazing that you know the brands are able to kind of, you know, think like that. In no other industry can I imagine that people, you know, wouldn't think of it as competition. Especially, you know, you look at our industry, the watch industry, it's so serious. So yeah, that was something that I was really surprised by.
Yeah, until they watch this show. My question isn't for Richard, the founder. I'd like to speak to Rich, the head of design, please.
Let me get him.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, good. I notice he wears the same shirts on the website too. Have you, or are you playing around with case design ideas? I'm a big fan of lugs and little intricacies on the case sides and little details like that. Have you thought of doing anything fun with the case design?
What do you mean? What do you mean, like, what do you mean fun? As in,
I mean, like, are, you know, slightly articulated or weird, you know, elongated lugs, or just, you know, something designed onto the side of the case. I like a little, you know, some watches will do a little evacuation along the side of the case or do a little design in there. You know, just case design fun.
Yeah. So what I would say is, the approach that I've taken to playfulness or to fun in the design is it's about, you know, is finding the right balance. So what are the kind of the approach that I took and that I continue to take is, again, this juxtaposition, kind of being, I guess, my sort of go-to word. The cases that I use are often sort of vintage inspired. So often that, you know, the cases and things, essentially the silhouette of the watch appears quite traditional.
Yeah.
And that's why you look at, you know, even the strap selection that I have on these watches, it's very traditional. It's sort of black, taupe, brown, you know, it's not out there with the coloring. You know, a lot of people would think, well, if it's a watermelon watch, why not, you know, a green leather with pink stitching? And I quite like the fact that it's, you know, it's that sort of a lot of vintage elements, subtlety, and then you know, all those subtleties make the dial pop more. It makes those colors even louder. So yeah, I guess that's the approach I've taken so far. As well, yeah, most of the fun and playfulness has been in the dial, but don't get me wrong, you know, when it comes to case design, you know, all the components are sort of bespoke, they're designed by me. But yeah, I guess that maybe the cases aren't quite as fun as some of the other elements, but that's by design.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. So, should we take some questions from the comments, Chickers?
Absolutely. Yeah. Certainly. Go on, Palm. You bring them all
I'll
up.
read them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Be the producer of the show. Yes, you certainly do. Yes.
Colin Buzzard has asked if there are any modifications done to I'll put it up on the screen actually as well. Done to the standard ST movement. Are there any modifications done to the standard ST movement to enhance the look through the back, through the case back?
So one thing we do is we have a regulator, so either a gilt or a silver regulator, which it doesn't necessarily improve timekeeping, but what it does is it makes it slightly easier to regulate if you're a watchmaker. So it's just a quality of life of the watchmaker. And aesthetically, it's quite nice to look at, and it's a little bit of an upgrade on the standard movement. In terms of sort of improving the either reliability, because that's a big question that people have with Seagull or Chinese movements in general. What we do is, so all our watches are assembled in the UK, so we get the movement sent across, and we regulate them. We check them, demagnetize if necessary, regulate if necessary, and do 100% QC on every single unit that comes in. And then
is that you, Richard? When you say we, is that you? Do you do that?
I wish I was qualified enough, but no. Fortunately for you and for anyone that gets a watch, no, that's done by a trained professional. That's my partner's a horologian. So yeah, fortunately, it's not me. It's someone much more qualified than I.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So yeah. So then when we case them up again, they're checked in 3 positions. So by the time they're sent out, we're really confident in them, which I think puts a lot of people at ease, where sometimes they're sort of anxious about getting a complicated movement from a Chinese manufacturer.
Yeah, because I have to say, Palmer, you could just put me full screen again. I think for the price point of these kind of watches, I think the movement, let's just get it, is amazing looking movement, isn't it?
Yeah.
For a Chinese movement, I think it looks absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, a lot of depth.
A lot of depth in that movement. I just love
nice.
hand wound watches because there's just no rotor in the way to spoil anything. It's just there. Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. Sorry, yeah. Carry on, Pat.
No, lovely. Always good to see the watch up close. So, Whole Milk has a question. What brand would you want to do a collab with to do a Studio Underdog a Studio Underdog-esque version of the MoonSwatch? So, who would you like to collab with the most?
I guess in this question, I'd be the swatch of the collaboration
of the Omega.
Yeah, so I'd be the one doing the more playful and accessible approach to a much higher, a much more established and premium brand. Who would I do?
Good question, Whole Milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, again, I might revert it. Who would you like to see sort of inject some Studio Underdog playfulness into their brand? I think it would, it'd have to be something, quite traditional.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Anybody put that in
there?
Yeah.
Patek Philippe.
Yeah.
Alana, maybe.
Maybe we could do a JLC reverso where one side is JLC and the other side is Studio Underdog.
That's a winner. I like that. Yeah. I'll reach out to them. I'll let you know when they send me their rejection email.
I'll forward the phone number that they keep hanging up on me on.
Perfect.
Richard, who would you like to though? We still haven't heard who you would like to.
Still heard you. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the way we're kind of approaching it is, it's not a reality. I think that JLC concept is brilliant. I'm a big fan of that.
Okay.
I think
heard it here first.
I'd have to go with that.
Are you a fan of the MoonSwatch? I mean, did you when it came? Have you had one in your hands, seen one, and looked at one, and
I'm an enthusiast. So when it all kind of kicked off, I was as excited as anyone else. I was one of those Muppets stood in line from, I think I got there at 3 or 4 a.m.
Right.
Went to Oxford Street, was queuing outside. I think I was about 150, I'd say, in the queue at 3, 4 a.m. And then by the time the doors opened, there must have been about 3,000 people there. I think they sold 7 watches before having to close the store down just because it was chaos. So
yes, I was at one of them. Yes.
That was a evening or early morning.
I got attacked at one of them.
Did you really?
Yeah. I panned across the the front doors when my camera when I streamed, and he came after me and tried to nick the camera off me, tried to nick the phone off me because I'd got him in camera. He was obviously
some random
not
guy,
wanting, a random guy not wanting to be on film. So I made sure my video of it was him in the thumbnail. I made sure I got us frame by frame, so I got his full picture of his face, and he was the thumbnail. I thought, I'll make you famous, you know what I mean? If you don't want to be.
Yeah, I feel like running up to a camera and saying, you know, get me off video, and you know,
exactly. That's what he did.
You know?
Hey, stop filming me. By the way, you can see me closer now.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry, go on. Go on, Andy.
I got no, just to follow up from Whole Milks, right? Because we said he asked like a collab, like the MoonSwatch version, like working with like GLC or Patek, but just from another angle. You know, like there's like G-Shocks what are made with like John Mayer's inspiration, right? So taking that approach, like what kind of influencer would you do a collab, you know, like a collab with? Is there anybody who you'd like to do something with? Or
a lot of the time it comes down to the concept itself for the watch. I think, you know, the brand has been growing, you know, quite quickly over the last year. So that I've had a number of opportunities to start working with collaborators, with, you know, on collaboration watches. Earlier this year, did a collaboration with Fratello watches, which was brilliant, and that was a great way to kind of get some experience into what the process of a collaboration is, what that could look like. And I think a lot of it is down to, you know, the product itself. And when I'm speaking to people that I'm, you know, possibly doing a collaboration with, or it starts as an idea and we kind of explore that, I'll often say, you know, my process is taking inspiration from something, you know, from my life, and it can be an everyday inanimate object. You know, my watches are inspired by a watermelon, a pair of trainers, anything that I just look at and go, do you know what, for some reason, either those colors really work or it makes me feel a certain way. So that's the sort of the starting point for me. I'll always say, you know, and it will be the most obscure brief. And I've, you know, I can kind of see a lot of the time when, if it's maybe a more corporate company, or if it's a company that may not necessarily have that approach, or maybe prior collaborations that they've done has always been quite limited by the brands. I take the opposite approach, where I almost sort of give them more than an open page, and I say, just, you know, throw whatever you want at me and we'll see if it works. And sometimes, you know, it can come together really well, or sometimes it might not quite connect and it takes a little bit longer. But that's it more. It's more about the sort of the end product to me.
Sure. That's cool.
If I can ask you, Richard, about your...
Go on.
Sorry, I just want to ask you before we get to that.
There's one more from the comments.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. We can. I just want to. What's your personal watch collection like? Have you got a large personal collection? Do you collect any particular kind of brands?
Yeah, I've got a handful of watches. I mean, you know, for the most part now, I'm user trialing my own Studio Underdog watches. But I've got a couple here in front of me. So
this is where all the VCs, the Pateks, and the Richard Milles come out.
Yeah.
Not quite. I wish. To be honest, I don't know where a lot of them are. My room is full of watches. So this is a cool one that I bought on eBay for next to no money. This is, you can make me.
I'll make you full screen.
Yeah. Ooh,
there you go. So it's a super old Gerard Perregaux.
Wow.
Okay. Wow.
And it's absolutely tiny. I think it's about 34 mil.
Wow, it is. Yeah, crikey.
Classic though. Classic.
Classic.
It's really cool. And I got it on eBay for next to no money. It was in non-working condition, which I think is why no one was keen on getting it. And I sent it to my watchmaker, and you know, it basically just needed a bit of a service, and has been up and running ever since. So this one I really like. I got the Tudor Black Bay 58 when the original one when that came out, and I still have that. Funnily enough, that was out of my hands for about 6 months. My flat was broken into when I was in London, and unfortunately, they grabbed a handful of watches, including Christopher Ward Moonglow, as well as the Tudor Black Bay 58. And I thought that was it. Bye watches, never to be seen again. And about 6 months later, when they got stolen, I put the registration, the serial number on the watch register of stolen goods. And about 6 months later, I got a call saying that someone had tried to sell it to a pawnbroker, and I was able to go and collect it.
Wow.
So I actually got that
brilliant.
one back, which is pretty amazing.
Excellent. We just got a super chat there. Fat Wingman Ben. Thank you, Ben. £20. Yeah. More good content, John. Keep up the good work, pal. Thank you, Ben. Good man. Thank you so much. Thank you. So are you a Christopher Ward fan then? Do you like Christopher Ward's?
Yeah, I do. I'm a big fan of the brand. I had a Christopher Ward watch, well before starting Studio Underdog, and the Moonglow in particular, I really loved as a watch and as a concept, because it's the type of watch that if you see it and you like it, there's nothing else similar. You can't get that same aesthetic from another watch, which I really liked as a concept. There's a lot of other brands and other watches that you can always find something similar or has the same aesthetic. This one was one that there was nothing quite like it.
Yeah, he's a friend of the show. He's Mike. Very, very, very nice bloke.
I saw he was on not all that long ago.
Yeah, great bloke.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right, Palm, you've got some more questions in the chat.
Just
Sorry,
a couple more, and this one's
no problem.
more than a question. It's an interesting one as a watchmaker on the way up. So from the Chili Badger, congratulations, Underdog watches sell well over retail on eBay. That's a good sign. So as a watchmaker, what do you personally, does that make you glad or sad in a way that the way market forces act?
So it's a weird one. It's kind of a weird feeling, but I think overall it's a good one. And I think the watch industry and enthusiasts that are interested in watches, if you look towards the higher end, a big part of the purchase decision is the aftermarket value. So I'm not talking about kind of Rolex and resale market, but I'm talking about watches. If you can go into a shop and buy a watch for £1,000, and that if you needed to, or you wanted to, or you didn't bond with the watch, you could put it on eBay and get £1,000. That plays into the purchase decision, and it's the same reason as to why a lot of people might not buy like a Hublot or something, because they know if you go into a store and you buy a Hublot, if you want to get rid of it or move it on, you might get half your money back, or whatever. So I think it's a consideration that plays into the purchase decision. And I'm starting to see, or in my mind, I think that is also reflective in other price categories. So if someone can see that if they buy a Studio Underdog watch and they buy it for £500, if they can see that if they don't bond with it, or even better, maybe they get to, they wear it and they enjoy it for a couple of years. And after a couple of years of use, it's got some marks, got some scratches, whatever, and they can put it on eBay and possibly get their money back, then brilliant. What's not to love? That's a great decision. You get to wear a watch for free. So I do think even at my value, that is a consideration. So I'm very fortunate in the fact that my products do retain their value. And I think that then helps to sort of to motivate people to kind of justify the purchase. If they know the worst case scenario, they don't like it, well, they can either send it back to me, obviously, or they can sell it on eBay. I think what I don't want is a sort of a major kind of reselling market. I want to avoid that. So currently the watches, they sell for a bit over retail, which is good, and I take that as a compliment. But if they were starting to kind of, resell for double or whatever, and then people were purchasing with the intent to resell, that's not healthy. That's not what I'm trying to do. And I've seen a couple of times, I've made sales, and within a day of receiving, it's something's gone on eBay. So I do have a little naughty book of people that have purchased. That I'll just make sure that a little flipper diary. I've got some names in front of me that I won't do the displeasure of naming and shaming, but if they do make any purchases in the future, I'll be sure to cancel their orders.
Excellent. Great question and great answer. Yeah.
The last name is Mr. Hole, first initial A.
So one more question, good question from Chris Clues here, which is a particularly good one. Richard, how hard is it to move forward from a recipe that works? Are you more picky with your future concepts?
Great question, Chris. So yes, up until this point, in terms of kind of colorways, a lot of the time it's just been messing around with different colors or different influence. A good example is the recent strawberries and cream that I launched. Originally I'd made a sample based on a conversation with Miguel, who's a tennis journalist, and we were kind of talking about. It originally stemmed from the Fratello watches, which was the purple and green aubergine colored watch. And Miguel said, this is looks like a Wimbledon watch with the purple and green. And we sort of had a joking reply back and forth in the Instagram comments of, okay, well, we'll have to work on a strawberries and cream. And even based off that, I did some renders, did some tests, and thought, what, this works. Put some photos out there, response was good, and then worked towards making it. So I guess that answers sort of the first part of the question, where the recipes, as it were, just come randomly and sometimes from a conversation. But for future concepts, I'm very aware that at this stage, Studio Underdog has been around for a year, 18 months. And we've got this chronograph collection, which has been really great and really successful. But what I don't want to just be is the guy that's just churning through different colorways, and that's it, and that's the brand, and it's sort of, because I'd imagine that will slowly die out. People will be less enthused. So that's why I'm really kind of working and putting a lot of effort into this field watch that I mentioned, because that's going to be the second album, and that hopefully is going to show people that Studio Underdog is here to stay. As much as we're kind of a little bit taking the piss about how serious the industry is, kind of want to show that actually we're a serious watch brand. We're here to do what we can.
Not a one-hit wonder.
Elevate British horology.
With the second album.
Not a one-hit wonder, exactly.
Okay. Got a super chat from Mr. GMT.
Mr. GMT, 20 Aussie dollars.
Chat.
Thank you, Brian. Wow, boys, for a second, he thought the guest was Tom Holland. Love your work, boys. Remember, always stay sexy. Thank you, Mr. GMT. Great support.
Cheers, GMT. I'll take that.
Well, unless you've got any watch questions in the chat, we'll have to wrap this up. I've dumped the link in a few times for Richard's Underdog place. So please go in and check the watches out. You've got lots of wonderful colours. They're all coming in next week, and they will sell out almost instantly. So go and get yourself one. Absolutely. Don't bother going on eBay and spending loads of money. Just wait till next week, and as long as you're on the ball, you can get one next week. Absolutely. I'll make sure I bring this to World Time with me, Richard. You can have it back. I'll give it a clean first. It's been on my wrist for a few weeks, so I'll give it you back. Thank you so much for lending it me for such a long time. Appreciate that.
So we've got Nico in the chat, and I briefly said hello to him at what's that event in London last year?
London Watch Show.
London Watch Show, yeah. So
yeah.
Hey, Nico.
Oh, hello, Nico.
Good
Good evening, sir. Thanks for coming in.
How
Yeah,
you doing,
he's a
Nico?
legend. He's a legend. He's Nico. Hello, Nico. Okay, everybody. If you want to just stay in the room when we after we've ended the broadcast, if it's okay. Yeah, Richard. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been a great show. I said once again, thanks to Richard for coming on. And we will see you all on Saturday with another broadcast. We'll let you know in the next couple of days what it's going to be, but it should be a nice surprise for you. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you all again soon.
Good night.